Hey, another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast on deck. It is March 30th. Happy Sunday. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden, Women's History Month series. Let's get it. All right, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Again, you can follow the show on all podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple. We're on the BS3TVLive.com website as well, BS3 Network on Roku, the Roku channel. Download the app, and you can get all the shows there, BS3 Network. And we're on iHeartRadio. It says Spreaker. You can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the social media platforms that Get the Real Deal, on Twitter. And I'm on Blue Sky too, a little bit on Blue Sky, not too much, but a little bit of hustle on Blue Sky. So, but I have another great guest on my Women's History Month series. Looking forward to this conversation. We're talking basketball. She is the queen of hoop. So you got to come with your A game when you got a name like that, the queen of hoop. And so I know she knows her stuff. So I've seen a lot of her content and followed her as well. So I'm glad to get her on. Megan Price, welcome to the show. She's the host of 806 Sports Radio, again, women's basketball media, Amarillo Side Poodles production. She's a podcaster. Like I said, media, a little bit of everything too.
A little bit of everything,
a mother too. So
yes,
for sure, yeah, that's the most important. So Megan, welcome to the show, the queen of hoop. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of moving away from media as much. I still do some events, but I'm kind of moved in-house with the Sod Poodles. So my second year with production with them, and kind of hoping to maybe move towards front office. So
okay,
I'll be in media for a little bit longer, but transitioning.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we gotta definitely talk about that, and that's a big move, like you said, from media to the front office. So yeah, we'll get into that for sure. But again, thank you for coming on this Women's History Month series that I'm doing, highlighting incredible women in all aspects of not just sports but media and business and content creation, whatever it is. But I was glad to reach out and you accepted the invite. So again, really appreciate it.
It means a lot to be a part of Women's History Month. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, let's get started. First question I always ask my first time guest is, who is Megan Price? And the Queen of Hoop. I love that name as well. So, but yeah, give a quick intro of yourself, of how you got into things, how you got into media and sports and all those things.
Okay, so my love of sports started from a really young age. My dad was a sports reporter here in West Texas. So he wrote for one of the papers that covered the Friday Night Lights team there in Midland and Odessa. So he wrote for the Midland Reporter Telegram there. He also wrote for the Canyon News, which is a really small town here locally. And then he also wrote for the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. So we lived in Lubbock when Cheryl Swoops was winning her championship there at Texas Tech, which is my GOAT, by the way, if anybody wants to know.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
That is the reason. I feel like she's one of the reasons that we get to, young girls that were my age at that time, we got to dream about actually having a professional league, because, clearly there wasn't one before that.
Yeah. Really. So, right.
There were a couple, but not to the same level of what the W is now. And just to be able to be a part of that. And then, life kind of moves on. You get out of high school, you don't play sports as much. Had an opportunity to maybe do some things at JUCO, but I just mainly focused on speech. Moved away from sports in general. And then COVID happened. And I had a friend that was starting a podcast, and he asked me to be a Dallas Cowboys rep. It was just a 5-minute segment, and gosh, it was 2020, so it was an awful year for the Cowboys. Dak broke his leg, and right around Thanksgiving when that happened, they decided to bring the NBA back. They had the bubble. They had a very small break. Then they did the draft. And then shortly after that, that shortened season started for 2021. And I was ready to talk basketball because the football world was really abysmal for me as a Cowboys fan. I started the Sip Off, which is a podcast I do about drinks and basketball. It's a play on tip off, so we call it the Sip Off. And then I was asked to be a part of a all-female panel podcast called Three Chicks in a Pod. And I love it very much. Shout out to Jen and Carrie. And then we found actually a fourth chick about a year later in our journey. And so we have a spinoff called Chicks and Salsa. So it's whatever version of the four of us on that podcast. And then in the middle of that, I got asked to be the host of 806 Sports Radio. And then that's just kind of when things blew up from there.
Okay, taking off. I love that.
Yeah.
No, I love that edit. It's interesting because, like you said, once we start, we love basketball or any sport. We love the sports. And what you said, out of high school, we start to dabble. We're growing up. We're just so we're out of high school and you either go to college.
I was 35 when COVID happened, and so it was a complete career change for me. But something that I had always dreamed of. And so, if ever you think maybe it's too late or that it can't happen for you, it absolutely can. I mean, you just don't know what can come out of tough situations like what COVID was, and then now what podcasting is. Podcasting was around before COVID, of course, but it took it to it's a completely different level. The way we use computers is completely different now. So it's just so much more accessible now. And it grew. Some things that did come out of COVID was the podcast and things like that. Zoom had blew up. Interesting enough, I remember when I first heard about Zoom, it was right before the pandemic, and so I was on a show actually. Someone that invited me, and they had Zoom. I'm thinking to myself, what is this? What is Zoom? And it was 2019 actually, maybe like right before it, late 2019, and they was talking about Zoom and this and that. At that time, Skype that came back, and back then when we're doing these video conference type calls and Zoom now then this blows up after that. That's all we could do is these Zoom. Now you got all Zoom has afforded me to go so many places. I was actually able to cover the 2021 Olympics because of Zoom, because they weren't allowed to have anybody there. There were no fans, there were no in-person media, and unless you were a part of the broadcast team. And so actually got to cover, who else can say that, but it's because of Zoom. So it was something that was, it changed how we do things. And from podcasting, and I still do podcasting, but now I'm with the Sod Poodles, and that's the AA team for the Diamondbacks. They are here in Amarillo. They are a 2-time champion. They've been here since 2019. They have such an amazing crowd there. That's what I would say is probably the best thing about the Sod Poodles is the fans. We didn't have a great year last year, and it was a packed house 24/7.
Yeah, and that's what you said. Because things have come out really well with Zoom and like you said, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. There's so much access to it. You're totally right too. I won't hold against you that you're a Cowboys fan. I won't hold that against you as an
I was born this way. I didn't choose it. And I'm a realistic Cowboys fan,
which I like. I do like that. I'm
not going to hit y'all with it's our year, because it's not.
It's interesting. Even though Cowboy fans do get a bad rap for that, I've met some. I'm an Eagles fan, big time Eagles fan, and it's I've been friends with Cowboys fans, and things like that. And I think every fan base has that. Just the Cowboys just get a bad rap for it because of that. Like maybe it's because it's always people are always saying it and always.
It does kind of oversaturate.
Yeah, oversaturate. Yeah.
So definitely, I can see where people would get tired of that. But I just want to preface that by saying I was born here. I'm Texan.
No problem. I'm just kidding. But it's all good because, like I said, I think even Eagles fans get too unrealistic.
Right. Oh yeah.
I mean, for real, like I'm a realist too. If I know like, okay, this could be a good year, a big
Right.
year, then I say if they don't have the talent and they didn't do anything in the draft and it just didn't seem like it
Yeah.
just looks bad. And like, yeah, I'm gonna tell you, like, yes, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
It's not even this Super Bowl year. Even when they got Saquon, it was like, okay, so wait and see. You got to see if this,
Right.
yes, he was the missing piece, but that defense the year before was no good, and that the offense collapsed. So yeah, so I can definitely be realistic. So it's
Yeah.
always a wait and
Same.
see when it comes to that. So for sure. But I want to get back into the media side of it
Sure.
all, and you said you do media and you've done podcasting and things like that. What do you think of how the media just in probably in the recent, I'll say in a year or two, how it's covered in basketball, like the NBA did? That's been a big topic, and in the women's basketball and WNBA too itself. How do you feel like the media has covered? It seems like there's a divide, and there's
For
a
sure.
lot of things going on. So when you were coming on the show, I said you're the one of the right people to ask this and discuss this, because I've had a lot of opinions on it too, because
Right.
there's so many narratives, there's some divide of how things are going on. But what do you think, as covering it and being a part of it as well?
I first off, I want to shout out the women's basketball fans. It is its own very distinct
Mm,
subsector.
yeah.
A lot of times they don't even watch men's basketball, or should I say the NBA?
Yeah.
If you want to
Yeah.
stir the pot a little bit. They entertain me daily. They are full of crash outs and spiraling and saying the craziest stuff, but they love their sport, and it continues to grow. I do love the media coverage, as it's kind of gotten back to what it was as far as the W side of things, what it was in '96 when the Dream Team came around,
Mm,
and then they started the W. Like the excitement that was there and the ratings that were there then were there, and then we're starting to break some of those records again. The W went through a financial lull from '09, and they're still just now coming out of that. Something that I like to say about the comparison between the NBA and the WNBA is there's 50 years difference in those
oh yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
You're talking about a league that's in their 78th season compared to a league that's in their 28th season or 29th. So, it's vastly different there. And if you go and you look at two different companies that have the same span in existence, then it would actually equal out, I feel like. So I think the W is on course to making money really quickly. I think something that the W didn't have for a long time was rivalries.
Mm,
I love women because we try to be uplifting and we're positive and we're always uplifting to each other, but what made the NBA the product that we all wanted to watch? It was that rivalry between Magic and Bird, and that's when they actually started making money. They weren't making money before that either,
yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
about 28 years into the NBA, and that's when they started making money. So I think we're on course for the W to actually start making a lot of money.
Yeah.
It, however, I think there's a lot of clickbait. I think there's a lot of
Mm.
gossipy type of media, and I'm not a fan of that. I definitely try to have journalistic integrity. Okay, so for example, I went and covered the ACC women's basketball tournament, but I'm a huge Texas fan and had everybody asking me, why didn't you go to Greenville right there, not too far away, and go cover your own team? But I don't think I could be unbiased in that situation. It's too
Oh, you're right.
intense. It's your conference tournament. It's our first year in the SEC. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could be unbiased on the sidelines of it, but
Yeah.
I take that real serious. When I'm in that situation and I am representing media, yeah, I'm going to be unbiased.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, I make a lot of great points. Journalistic integrity, that's missing. That's missing. And then I'm saying all media, because it's
Right?
not,
No, no,
but
no. There's good media out
there's
there.
great
I'm just
media.
not a fan
Yeah.
of the arguing back and forth, like the clickbait.
Yeah.
I'm not into it.
Me either. To me either. And I've done over the last couple of years too. I've done a lot of media things for the W, and you're right. There's a lot of good media, but do you have the ones that want to jump on and like I said, be clickbait, do all these other things, just to make a name for themselves.
Right.
I think that's part of the issue. And with the NBA media, on top of that,
Mm.
now we're seeing it unfold now with Stephen A. Smith and LeBron,
Right.
that whole thing, and
And this is not the first scenario that we've seen like this
right,
with
right,
media and an athlete. Last year we had that incident with Embiid, and that media member clearly crossed the line.
yes, hmm,
There in Colorado, that media member with primetime crossed a line.
cross the
So
line, yep, hmm,
I do think that there are some things that need to come back to journalism, but I don't know if it's going to go that way because the way that we consume our entertainment is so different now. That's
yeah,
why ESPN is doing cutbacks. That's why everybody's going back to Connecticut because they can't afford to keep everybody on anymore. Because how are we all getting our news? We're all getting our news from podcasts and
yeah,
Facebook and
hmm,
X, like that, YouTube. Like that's how we're all getting our news now, and it's different.
yeah, totally different. No, you're right, and 100%, I agree. And like you said, this is not the first time someone like, and then Stephen A. He's been part of a few of these,
Right.
with Kevin Durant and with
Hmm.
Kyrie Irving, but
Right.
it's like some media takes it personal, and then if the athletes are treating the media like crap,
Hmm.
the media should not take that. They should not take that from
That too.
anybody. You
That
know,
too.
but they, as we know, they can't be part of the story either. They shouldn't be part of the story. That's it, but that's gone out the
Right.
window. But that's where it said media integrity. That's where that's supposed to come in.
Right.
But when Stephen A., who's now probably the biggest media, just sports media, now is getting all that money, he's
And
on a
not to say
different.
that he doesn't work hard, that
Right,
he
right.
works all day
Hmm,
long. We see him on ESPN all day long. It's not just
hmm.
his shows that he does, but I just don't like his style at this point. And I don't think he always used to be that way. There was a point when I used to enjoy First Take. I don't watch it
Yeah.
anymore.
But yeah, I try. I watch it every once in a while, like click in and try
Mhm.
to watch it. But it is hard too, and he's become such a character, I would say.
Right.
But he's all about now. Hey, what can I do and what can I say to get the biggest rise out of people? And this is
Right.
one of those. It's one of those situations where now that LeBron stepped to you and really said what he had to say. It was brewing for a long time,
Right.
but this is what, like LeBron said, this is what you wanted. You wanted to talk, and now
We
you're
saw it a
getting it
couple
now. You
months
wanted the
ago.
attention, you're getting it now. So, but yeah,
Right.
that was just I definitely when I had you on, I said I gotta definitely ask you about that as that whole with the media and everything too. So
Absolutely.
yeah, love that answer as well. But yeah, so let's get into the women's basketball, which
Absolutely.
we both love, and the W and college love it all as well.
Same.
What do you think of? We're starting to college now, which we have Final Four almost.
Right.
All the teams are almost here. As of right now, we have UCLA and South Carolina that have
Right.
made the on that side. And what do you think of the tournament so far?
Oh man.
And the new with Juju going down too, that was devastating, heartbreaking, and everything
Right.
too. But what do you think of this season and the tournament so far?
I think it's been a really exciting season. Women's basketball, it always starts with NCAA for us.
Hmm,
And then, so the championship is like a Monday, and then the next Monday is the draft. And then 2 weeks later, the girls go and report to training camp. And then the W season starts like a month
right.
after the championship. So this is ramping up women's basketball for us. And luckily this year, we got to have Unrivaled during the same time
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
So just we got to see a lot of the ladies that we don't get to see as much because they normally go overseas and go play, and they got to stay with stateside and make comparable money, and have great viewership, comparable viewership. I think, before I jump into the NCAA real quick, I want to say that Unrivaled really put the WNBA on the clock about making improvements because it's
Hmm.
possible. If you can do it in an inaugural year in a player owned league, then the W absolutely has no reason that they can't figure out some of these
Good point.
problems.
Yeah, great point.
But NCAA season has been really exciting from the very beginning. We saw the number one seed go down to UCLA, and that was South Carolina. That was a shocking loss to kind of get us going in non-conference play, and then got to start conference play about the first week of January. And this year was so different because we had conference realignment. And so we got to see what the LA teams and some of the leftover Pac-12 teams look like in the Big Ten, which Big Ten is such a different type of basketball compared to the rest of the country. I think that they're very physical. They play defense. They're a slower pace type of basketball generally, except for Iowa. Iowa plays pretty fast pace. And then you get these LA teams, and then you get Oregon, and they play a much faster paced offensive style type of basketball. And so they did really well this year, both of the LA teams over there in the Big Ten. But I would say it really promoted for great basketball, because there were some matchups that, UCLA looked a little shaky in. USC didn't really look too shaky within the conference. But then getting to Juju, losing her in the tournament, that is one of those that you got to sit down and kind of log out and be like, all right, I'm going to talk about basketball tomorrow. It was, the sadness won instead of the madness that day. So she'll be back, though. She's going to be great, and she already is great. We hate to see her go down, but luckily it was already a record-breaking season for her. So we got to get quality out of that. Unfortunately, we don't know what next season's going to look like for her as far as her rehab process. Like Cam is on month 8 now, Cameron Brink, and she's just now having some type of being able to cut a little bit. I don't think she's in contact yet. So, it's a long process.
Yeah, it's a very long process. I love the breakdown. It's a very long process. And you said Cameron Brink just coming back off that devastating injury as well. You said 8 months in, season starts in May. Maybe.
Right. So we don't know if we're going to see her. We'll see her this season. I don't know if we'll see her in the beginning part of the season. I would expect probably an all-star break type of comeback. This year is going to be a non-FIBA or Olympic break. So every other year with the W, they have an Olympic break, or the FIBA championship as well, the World Tournament. And so this year is not one of those years. So I'm interested to see what our All-Star looks like, because on those years, they use the All-Star as one of their exhibition games, basically getting ready for the World Tournaments or the Olympics. And so this is not that. I wonder, so there's less All-Stars really, because there's no Team USA.
Right.
So I'm interested to see what that looks like.
Yes, that's going to be a big topic coming up, like who's going to make the all-star teams. What he said, with no break, because it said it was Team USA versus basically the WNBA all-stars, and so there's so much talent and in the league right now. But
there's only so many all-star positions, So I'm interested to see what that looks like. I love that they do that format. I think maybe if the NBA could find a way to do that, one, that would give you a little more gel time with your national team. And then I think it might bring a little excitement back to the all-star.
Yeah, they need it. The NBA definitely needs it. They need it for sure.
No lie.
Yeah, they need something to shake this up. Because they've tried it. And the one thing I do give Adam Silver on the NBA side is that he's tried so many different iterations of the All-Star. And for a couple of years it works. And then this one didn't. This season just didn't work at all. But I wish they would go to that to have like the USA team versus the world. And I know we see it in the Olympics. Yeah, but it would be nice to get the world, just have a team, just one team.
We saw it in hockey. They did it just recently, and that was like a 4-game tournament or a 4-team tournament in hockey, and it was one of the most exciting parts of the NHL season so far.
Yes, it was. Yeah, ratings wise, everything. Yeah, it was all that and everything too. But to go back what you said too, which I wanted to, I totally agree on with you about the WNBA getting it together with what Unrival just did. And as you said, the WNBA has the resources, they have the money, they have all those things. Like if a player-driven league like Unrival can do it, the WNBA definitely can do it.
Absolutely. In year one.
in
in
year
year one.
one. Yes. Well, you got loads of history and
Which
time. Yeah.
I say year one, you got to give them about an 18-month cushion on that too, because we knew Unrivaled was coming for about 18 months before the
Yes.
season. So
Mhm.
they've been putting it together for a little bit, but to be successful at that level in year one, to get those media deals that they got in year one,
Mhm.
all those sponsorships that they
Sponsorship
got.
investors,
Um,
yeah. Mhm.
and it is trickling over to the W, because we have like 20 cities that have bids in for expansion teams, and we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of players that are or athletes and others that are investing in the W now. We see Serena Williams is going to be a part of the Toronto Tempo.
Mhm.
Candace and Peyton Manning are trying to get a team to Nashville. So there's been some other KD's trying to get a team there in Austin. So
Yep.
there's been a lot of interest with women's basketball, and I think we're just right at the brink of it.
Yeah.
When I started getting my credentials, it was when the Webble started, and obviously COVID,
Yeah.
and they needed they needed to be covered so bad, they needed viewership so bad, that they just kind of gave a nobody like me a season credential, and I just did as much as I possibly could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, opportunity, the circumstances,
Right.
it was different, but
Like we both needed a chance, and it ended up like timing was perfect on
that's
it.
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect timing on that. Yeah, congrats on that, because it's like I said, it's hard getting even credentials. I
It
was just
is.
talking to my last guest about getting media credentials, and every once in a while you might get, like 2 years ago I did get, for the draft and a few
Uh-huh.
other things, but now I get the for the Zoom thing, so
Right.
I get that
It's
access.
not as easy as it was. I'll say, when Becky came over to Vegas, it got a lot harder to get in this
Yeah.
Vegas media. So it's not as easy. When Stewie left and went to New York, like now it's kind of hard to get in with New
Oh
York.
yeah. Yes.
They're on the board finally with a championship. So
Yep. Yep.
the popularity is there, and I think we're going to have an incredible season ahead of us.
Yes.
Um, to keep it on the W, I do think Indiana probably won free agency, if we're being
I
honest. I mean, there
agree.
were some great moves, but
Mhm.
they also compacted that with some coaching changes as well.
Yep.
Christy Sides was the coach of the Indiana Fever, and Stephanie White now is the coach. She is a former coach from Indiana, former
Yep.
player for Indiana, so
Mhm.
this is definitely a homegoing for her. But the shocker for me is when she slid DeWanna Bonner over.
Yes.
That was huge. They had
Mhm.
already gotten Sophie Cunningham, which that's crazy too. You get one of the best 3-point shooters in the league coming off the bench for y'all. Like that's not even your best 3-point shooter on the team.
Yeah.
And then you got DeWanna Bonner, who's the only person on the team who has a championship, and she's going to bring that veteran leadership actually on the court. Like Stephanie's going to be doing it on the sideline, but DeWanna is going to be coaching on the court.
Mhm. Yeah. Veterans. I mean, and that's what Indiana needed. Being such a young team last year, with Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston, and the team that they had together, and then to make the playoffs was great and
Right.
everything. Wonderful for them, and got a little bit of an experience. But now you have veteran leadership from the coaching side and on the court. You
This is
know,
how you build around
that's
a
how you
young
build.
star. Now
Yes.
we saw it on the men's side of things too, because I think the Spurs are really going all in on
Yeah.
putting help around Wimby. There's just been some crazy circumstances around that nobody could have
Yeah.
expected. But we see that on the women's side too. Like this is how you build around a young star, and
Mhm.
Indiana is doing that absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to NCAA, so I'm a Texas fan, and yesterday was probably the hardest day of the tournament
Yeah, I
for
bet.
me. I knew it was
Yes.
coming because Tennessee played us the exact same way in our first matchup, and we only won by 4 there. So very similar results. We got a little bit more points this time, just because the way things went in that last minute.
Yeah.
But the other 39 minutes, Tennessee was giving us hell.
Yeah, business. Right, right. Yes.
They were giving us hell. But this is Tennessee's first year for their coach, and she also had 3 seniors that decided to stay and support her. I don't know if y'all remember how she ended up getting this job, but Last year in the tournament, Tennessee was playing South Carolina and they were beating South Carolina and almost putting them out of, I think it was the conference tournament, almost putting them out of the conference tournament. And they leave Camila Cardoso open.
Wide open at the top. Yep.
Right. She's never hit a three in her career before, or her collegiate career. I don't know about before, but not in her collegiate career. They leave her wide open. She hits it, wins the game. South Carolina advances. Tennessee fires their coach, which I don't think she was a terrible coach, but I mean, that was a tough moment, you know. Somebody has to be held responsible for that. And anyway, so you bring Kim in, and she is somebody that, as much as I hate playing her, it's because I respect what she's doing. She is a basketball savant. She has impressed me to no end. That game against Texas, the first matchup, she didn't even coach. She had just had a baby and she only missed 2 games. Like superwoman right there. And then her coach stuck to her coaching scheme, which is very unique. She leads the league in substitutions. So a minute 40 into this most recent game, and she subs out 4 ladies. And then 2 minutes later, she subs out 5 more. And that's her MO, 4 or 5 at a time. And like, I want to say by half, she'd already had 64 substitutions. And I was losing my mind over there. And it was stressful. I knew it was coming, though, because like I said, in that first matchup, we were I want to say we were down. We had 2 minutes left in the fourth. And the assistant coach, I knew it was coming because this is what Kim does. Subs out 5 ladies, and you have all fresh legs, all fresh legs for that last couple of minutes. Oh, it's a nightmare. She's so smart.
So that's a smart. Yeah, it's very smart. And this like you said, just overall, this tournament has been great. You said but Juju, the devastating injury, things like that. But we're seeing, people forgot how great Paige Beckers is, and she's showing again. Like, absolutely. I'm here. Don't forget, I'm here. I want to win a championship.
Not only is it Paige's swan song, it's her final go. She did decide to enter the draft. There was questions on whether she was going to, because she has another year of eligibility left, but she's already 23, I think. And so at a certain point, are you beating up on 18 and 19-year-olds? I know that question is there. I don't view it that way personally, but I know that criticism is out there. And so, but Dallas has the number 1 draft pick, and it was terrible this last year. It was bad beyond bad. And so, but they made some free agency moves. So they hired Kurt Miller as their GM. I'm not a fan of him as a coach. He's done some things that I'm just not a fan of. But as a GM, bringing over Nalissa Smith from the Indiana Fever, who was sick of the Indiana crowd, can't blame her. And then they really hit the big one with Dejanay Carrington from Connecticut, which is Nalissa's partner. And so I question that a little bit in the dressing room or the locker room. Like, is that going to be an issue? But we have seen it be successful many times in the DT played with Penny. Alyssa Thomas and Dewana Bonner played together for a very long time. But we've also seen it be volatile, BG. So there's been some situations where it didn't work out. And so I question that a little bit. But Dejanay Carrington is somebody who they're both Kim Mulkey products. They both went to Baylor before Kim slid over to LSU. So to me, that says a very gritty type of basketball. That's why she was Defensive Player of the Year. She doesn't have the most size, but she makes up for it in grit. She's not super undersized, but she's definitely not tall. But that grit, you're not going to catch that speed or that intensity. So it's going to be better in Dallas, but it wasn't necessarily a desirable destination for Paige. But she went ahead and entered the draft because there was a question. She could have gone and played another year, or she could have even sat out and just played unrivaled this next year and then waited. So we'll see. But she is definitely going to go to Dallas, and that's going to be interesting. Her, Arike, Dejanay Carrington, Nalissa Smith, and then you'll have Tiara McCowan at the center position.
I like to see what Dallas is doing, as you said. And it's funny because I was just reading about what Paige had said. She said, I thought I said this already, or this was already been known and
Right.
whatever. Or I've declared already, but she, like I said, she reiterated
Mhm.
to see. But we got a couple of comments here before I let you go. Let's see. Nathan Ramasandra from the NRR. He said, "Happy Women's History Month."
Thank you so
Yep,
much.
to you. And he said he's covered Paige a couple of times.
I haven't seen her in person. I'm jealous.
Yeah, and he just asked, "Do you think USC can keep it close with UConn tomorrow, even without Juju?"
No, I don't. To kind of round it out here, I don't think it's just Paige's swan song. I think it's Gino's swan song as well.
Yeah,
You can see it in him. It's not just in reverence of seeing Paige move on. Like, he's tired. He's frustrated. I think he's done, honestly. I don't
yeah,
think he's super happy about the way college sports is going anymore. He's definitely not a fan of the super regional.
no, no.
you know, so I don't know. I think this is it. When we saw Paige give her last press conference at UConn, the camera panned, and Gino's in tears and he can't talk.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think this is it. And I think those girls know that. I think they know that they're playing for Gino's final year and they're on a mission. I
they are on a
don't
mission.
think that
Mhm.
with USC being, understaffed at the moment, shorthanded, I don't think they can. No.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if anybody can beat UConn this year.
I don't think so
Let
either.
me
Especially when
preface it by saying that. I don't know. I
they're
don't know.
they're full strength. No, I don't believe that either. And the way Paige has been playing, and
Right.
we've known as women's basketball fans and self in general, Paige is locked in, and she just seems to just
And
want to
she's
take
not the
over.
only one healthy. This is the
No,
first time UConn's been healthy in like 3 years.
right, Ozzy Fudd, and yeah, it's
Everybody.
everybody's in, everybody's buying in, and they're locked in. So you're right. If this is Gino's farewell tour, farewell. I think they want to win it with Paige too, and just for her
Right.
to have that championship. I don't think anybody can beat UConn either, especially when they're healthy as
Right.
well. But then before I let you go, like I said, two more. TCU and the year they having, and Haley Van Lith. Wow, it's interesting. People seem surprised, but she was balling before this anyway. The
Right.
LSU thing just didn't work because of chemistry or lack of.
Right.
It wasn't a fit. It just wasn't fit.
It
And
wasn't. I think I'm not the biggest Kim Mulkey fan,
mm,
but of course I watch for the entertainment,
right.
and she is a good coach. I'll say that. I just don't necessarily agree with her coaching style sometimes, and I think she
Yes.
left Haley out there to dry when it came to that matchup with Iowa. Like, Flage definitely is your best perimeter defender. That's
Yeah.
who you put on Caitlin.
Hmm.
And she just kind of left Haley out there, and you saw that it wasn't working out. You saw it hadn't been working basically all season, but you had Angel to sit there and kind of save the day. And we see what a difference Angel made for LSU because they're not moving on right now. And that had Angel been there like last year against UCLA, Lauren wouldn't have been shut down, but she would have been contained.
Hmm.
And that was the difference maker, I feel like, in that
Yeah.
matchup. So
Agreed.
it's interesting. Now, TCU last year, it's not just adding Haley Van Lith or Sedona. It's They lost 4 players at the end of non-conference play. They had a 14-0 start to their season, and they
Hmm.
lost 4 players to season-ending injuries. And they had to have open tryouts just for them to play conference play, or they were going to have to start forfeiting games. And in fact, I think they had to forfeit 1 game. And for them to be able to do that and then still have a great season, it wasn't the best season, but they survived, and that's more than some people could say after losing 4 players to that type
Yeah.
of injury. They pulled a player from who was a dual athlete. She was on this volleyball team, so she came to the basketball team as well. And then they pulled a couple of ladies who are still on the team right now. They weren't
Yeah.
playing basketball in college anymore. They had moved on, but hey, they were state champions here in Texas when they were in high school. So not that they didn't know the game, but for him to pull those pieces together like that,
Yeah.
he's a very gifted coach.
Yeah, and I think that you're right, and I think that's what coaching was a main part of this. Yes, getting Haley Van Lith and
Mhm.
letting her just play her game free,
Right.
and everything too. You see the improvement, and yeah, it's just Yeah,
It's
hell
still
yeah.
go Texas though.
Yeah,
Texas
yeah. Oh,
forever.
go. I'm sure for you, definitely Texas. It's all
Real
Texas
quick.
for sure, no
I am
doubt.
impressed, and I'm taking them seriously for sure. I'm not going to
Yeah,
overlook them and say, "Hey, we're looking towards UConn," because that's not the case. We got to get there
got to
first.
get there. Yeah, get take
And
care of business.
TCU showed so much grit. But I'll be honest with you, what I saw out of that matchup was Haley Van Lith versus Notre Dame. That's what I saw. Now the other ladies contributed, but Haley was another world.
She was balling yesterday for sure, and just in her bag. Basically,
Absolutely.
it was
Yeah,
one of those. It was just one of those times. She was just like, okay, they were down. It's time to take over and do my thing as well.
absolutely.
I feel like I could talk basketball with you for the longest time because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of just basketball. The basketball is my number one, the men and
Same.
women's side, and I love the NFL. That's my but basketball for sure. But I got to ask you my last one for this. Is my last one, Women's
Okay.
History Month, and I ask all my guests. I've asked all my guests, what does that mean to you personally and professionally?
So personally, if you walk this life, if you can't walk anybody else's walk. So if you're a woman, you understand it. You understand the hardships that come from a very young age, and nobody else can understand it but you. So, to be a part of Women's History Month means so much to me. And actually, I'm able to be the only female radio host in this, or sports talk radio host in this area, from like Albuquerque to Wichita Falls. Like, so for like a 7-hour region, I'm the only female sports talk radio host. So it's very important to me to be a part of women's history and for us to not let it be taken away from us.
I love that. I really do. Yeah, it's incredible what you're doing and continued success. I know you talked a little front office stuff here.
Yeah, I'm dreaming. I'm not there yet, but
Yeah, but yeah,
that is my next move.
we'll put it out there. We won't discuss too much of it. I
Right.
know it's probably still in the works and everything too. So, but many blessings on that and best
Yeah,
of luck. Thank you for the time. We got to definitely do this again,
absolutely.
for sure. I think when yes after the draft,
Mhm.
and I think I'm gonna do a couple weeks right before the WBB season. I'm just gonna have a discussion of the season and in itself.
Mhm.
But you're on that list for sure, top
Yeah,
of the list. I
definitely
will.
let me know. I'd love to
I
come back on.
I will for sure. We'll definitely have to talk about expectations, all these things. Who you got and winning and all these things. We'll do a preview show for sure. But again, thank you, Megan, for the time. Let everyone know where they can follow you on social media. Reach out to you if they got any questions or just want to follow your content.
You can just search the Queen of Hoop and you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, or X. Or you can look up the Chicks podcast, and that's on YouTube. So you'll have each version of our show on that channel.
All right, follow the Queen of Hoop for sure. You're definitely going to get an in-depth content, and which I love. I love that anyway. I soak all that in wherever I can find it. But you do some incredible work. So again, thank you
Thank you.
again. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the week. And we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.
All right, thanks.